William Shatner!
It's pretty dark, isn't it? I mean,
I'm getting the light, sir.
getting the light.
Don't put me around.
Gotta find the light. So, thank you for being here, everybody. I love New Orleans.
We love you!
I was king of the Marty Gras, king of the Bacchus. Many years ago. How long ago was it? I've sort of forgotten.
88.
Eight?
In 1988.
88. Gee, that's before most of you were born. It was quite an experience being on those floats and throwing things at people and dodging the things that people threw back. And so that my most vivid memory of being king of the Bacchus was getting to City Hall.
Yes.
And you know, they have the stands and people are watching and the mayor comes down and hands you a glass of champagne. I had this costume on, I've forgotten now what it was, but it was a cloak of some kind, and some loose-fitting pants underneath so that standing around on the float would not be uncomfortable. And he raised his, or she I think it was, raised her glass in a toast to King Bacchus, and I raised my glass and my pants fell down. It was somewhat embarrassing because it was on national TV. And listen, I have all kinds of amusing anecdotes to tell you, but what I would rather do is have an exchange with you from the very beginning. That's adding light, that's much better. So why don't you ask, are we set up for questions? Have we got a microphone here? Don't all answer at once.
There's one behind you.
No, there's one there, but I mean for a question, are we set up for questions at all? Why don't you, raise your hand in front of you. Ask me what you'd like to hear me. What's your name?
Anything.
Peter.
Have you ever hated Captain Kirk?
Have I ever hated Captain Kirk? Well, no, it's a good question. I mean, imagine last night we were having dinner, and the waiter comes up, and he says, "What would you like?" And I said, "Oysters." And he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." I mean, come on. On the other hand, I wouldn't have been here ordering those great oysters if it hadn't been for Captain Kirk. So it's a two-edged sword. It's annoying as all get out. Have you been where no man has been before?
Have you?
It depends on the girl. So yes, it can be irritating. On the other hand, imagine getting to do the things I've done as a result of playing the part of Captain Kirk. I did a documentary on the captains. I don't know what any of you. I mean, I didn't know where I was going with that. It would be like any of us sitting down with a blank piece of paper, and you have no information. So you start your first sentence. I'm sitting here at my desk writing on this blank. You don't know where you're going. And so it is making a documentary. It was extraordinary. I knew I had to get to a lot of places in the world. I had to get to London to talk to Patrick Stewart, and then to New York, and I needed, and I couldn't go commercial airline. It was too time consuming, and going in and out of the airports and all the things we had to do, it just would have taken too much time and energy. I needed a private plane, but we got a bid on what a private plane would cost, It was like $250,000. And the whole documentary was like for $50,000. So just getting on the airplane, the documentary wouldn't have worked. So I decided to call an airplane company, airplane manufacturer company, Bombardier. Just called. I just called. I'm a Canadian, and I knew that Canada knew me. And this Bombardier is the largest airplane manufacturer in Canada. I just sort of thought maybe it would work. And I asked to speak to the CEO. And they said, well, what's it about? The secretary says. So I said, well, I want to talk to him about an airplane. They thought maybe buy one. So he gets on the phone and I say, it's Shatner. He says, oh my gosh, I'm a fan. I've been to conventions. You're kidding. He says, what can I do for you? I said, I'd like you to give me an airplane for a few weeks and fly me around the world. And he says, of course. You're Captain Kirk. And so we made this film that, of which I'm enormously proud, but also I had sort of an epiphany. I had an experience. And with all these wonderful people, I got to sing an interview with Avery Brooks. Thank you very much. I did that. So senior moment there. With Avery. Have you all seen Avery?
Yes.
And you know what he's like then. He's a little out there, isn't he? But what a wonderful man. What a spirit, what a soul. So I got to discover Avery Brooks, whom I didn't. That sort of thing happening to me as Captain Kirk. I mean, what else? Look at this. I'm in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Hey? And I'm talking to all of you, feeling the love, because I'm Captain Kirk. So, that's threatening. So, that's the two-edged sword.
You have influenced so many lives.
Wait a minute. Ask me a question.
Sorry, I'm excited.
Sure.
You've just influenced so many lives.
I've just influenced so many lives.
My husband.
Your husband.
You influenced him
I
as a
influenced
child.
him to marry you.
Absolutely.
That's a good ending. Thank God
Yeah.
for Captain Kirk. You got a camera on me and sunglasses. There's got to be a unifying theme.
Totally.
Now, no sunglasses, but still got a camera. Influence a lot of people. For example, how did I influence you?
Well, for my husband,
For
growing
your
up,
husband.
you were a role model for him.
I was a role model.
You always did the right thing.
Always did the right
Took
thing.
care of your crew like a family.
I had treated my crew like a family.
Yes, and he
And
had
is he good to you? He doesn't beat you?
In a fun way.
In a fun way. He beats you in a fun way. Here, take this. Good. Jack. You don't know Jack.
Are you going to write any more Star Trek?
Am I going to write any more Star Treks?
Yeah, are you going to continue any more of Kirk's story?
Any Kirk story? No, I'm not being asked to. I loved writing weird things that I thought might happen to Captain Kirk. The one thing Paramount allowed me to do was to go my way with what I thought, if Captain Kirk had lived, what I would think of his life, and I sort of modeled his fictional life on these books that I wrote, on my own life that was happening. Good things happen, sad, bad things happen, and I allowed them to happen to Captain Kirk, and it's sort of autobiographical in a way. The several books that I wrote on Star Trek, making Captain Kirk have the experiences or the feelings or the transitions into older age as I have had, I foisted on the character. And I would have loved to have made the movies that way, as the Kirk character aged, but it wasn't to be. So that's.
You age very well.
I age very well. I don't know. I think that's an oxymoron. You age very well. I don't know. Wine, when it goes bad, ages. What's your question?
Gavin,
Gavin.
my question for you is, what do you think about the J.J. Abrams Star
What did I think about J.J. Abrams' film?
And like Chris Pine's interpretation.
What?
And Chris Pine's interpretation.
And Chris Pine. You know, I got to interview Chris Pine on The Captains. Turns out to be a lovely young man who's really talented and really looks good. And yeah, I've aged well, but he hasn't. He's 32 or something. He's wonderful, and he's a real heroic character. He's got the demeanor, and he's got the body and the voice, and so along with being a good actor, he's got all the equipment. I think he's going to be wonderful, and apparently they're planning a second movie. They're shooting momentarily, and I got to know JJ a little bit. I invited him to sushi, and so we ate sushi together. It was a real bonding experience. And I think the problem is how do you deal with the age factor? And as you age, actors who've been around a while have a strange problem. And that is, you're looking at yourself on the screen, like if ever I'm flipping the television set and an old Star Trek plays, one of the ones that I was in, and I see myself 45 years ago. I'm looking at the strange character. I'm thinking, oh, wow. At the time, I thought I looked bad, but I'm looking at him, thinking, God, that's pretty good. And then I see a later picture, film of mine, and I see what it looks like at 60 and 70, and holy cats, it looks like they put age makeup on me. And I can't stand to look at it. I mean, it's kind of frightening. It's like, we did an age movie of a segment of Star Trek where everybody ages. What was the name of that?
Deadly Years.
The Deadly Years. I knew that. And I remember we used Kleenex and gum, glue. And they put Kleenex all over my face to make me look old, and then they patted it down, they glued it down, and then we got makeup, and I looked at myself in the mirror. I remember at the age of whatever I was at the time, I go, wow, am I going to look like that? And now I'm looking like that. So it's a strange position to be in, to be looking at yourself through the aging process. I mean, if you look back at old pictures of you, let alone 10 years ago, you think, my God, 10 years, and I look like this. This is a lot longer than 10 years. So there's a sort of frightening and yet sad aspect to getting old. I mean, I'm running through, I can see the finish line, and I'm running the race, and I'm thinking, wow, I don't want to go. But the oxidation, I think, isn't it? What is it? The free radicals. The free radicals are penetrating my cells. So I'm eating I'm eating as many blueberries as I can. Is there? What? Oh, I'm still beautiful. There's something pitiful about that. No, Bill, you're still beautiful. Oh, shut up.
That's sort of like in the South when we say bless her heart. Same thing.
Yeah, but he's saying it's like you do in the South. Bless your heart.
Mr. Shatner, I'm Ben Castro from
Ben.
Hollywood South.
Yes.
Pleasure to have you back.
Pleasure to be here.
You have been an inspiration to many people.
Inspiration to many people.
One thing you may not have touched
I
on.
may not have touched on.
1984,
84.
Saturday Night Live, the Get a
Saturday
Life
Night
sketch.
Live, get a life.
You know, you told a lot of us to get a life.
All right, let's talk about
I
it.
happen to
All right, let's talk about Get a Life. All right, here's Get a Life. So, SNL says, here's a routine, Get a Life. I say Get a Life to the theater, and I'm thinking it's fun, and it's fun. And everybody laughs, and then I get back, we were shooting Star Trek or something in one of the movies. And I think it was Roddenberry said, wow, that was funny, and we all fell off our seats, and I got very little reaction, negative reaction from the fans, okay? Some years later, I'm doing a convention, and I'm thinking, you know, who are you people? Who comes to a convention? So I did a book called Get a Life, in which I examine who it is who's coming to these conventions. And I discovered that you come to the conventions to see each other. You come, hey, there's Charlie, hey, Dick, hey, Ben, hey, Fred, and you're their old friends. You embrace each other. You talk about what happened, how the kids are, and now you're getting old, and look at how much weight so-and-so put on, and you have a great time together. I mean, the actors, it's nice, they're there, but it's not the big deal. The big deal is seeing Jimmy. Right? Okay, so that's the conclusion I draw in my book, Get a Life. Then, wait a minute. So, I then, after making the captains, I think, I'm going to make a documentary on discovering, on filming, basically from my book, of who comes to conventions. I'm calling it Fanatics. And I go to the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, the big one, I think 25,000 people or something. And I'm filming who comes to the conventions. And I discovered not only are you coming to see yourself, but something else that is really magical. I discovered that all of us are participating in a mythological ritual. We, in this civilization, have no mythology. So part of the need for mythology is our participation in the mythology of Star Trek. And that the heroes in the Joseph Campbell, if you'll excuse me, way of explaining this, the need for heroes is supplied by basically by the captains. And the act of getting an autograph or buying a paraphernalia of Star Trek is participating in the ritual of the mythology. So not only are we all here to see each other, but there's something else that's going on that we're sort of not quite aware of, peripherally aware of. And I discover that in this film, Fanatics, which will come out sometime soon as I get to finish editing it. It's a whole strange thing. Now, the latest piece of news is I'm doing the same thing at this very moment. On Thursday, all day, I'm doing another documentary on Xena, who's having
That's right, Serena
Kevin
interviewed him.
Sorbo's throw-off, the spin-off, thank you. I knew that. So the spin-off from Hercules becomes Xena, and there are all these ladies going to the Xena convention,
Yes.
and it is a hoot. There's 1,200 people at the Marriott Hotel outside of the Burbank Airport
That's
right now. I shot there on Thursday. I'm going to go back on Sunday and interview Lucy Lawless and all that. But the ladies are telling me about the love that they're all part of, sharing there is love and attention and family, and it's like the show's been dead 10 years. And these people congregate and have
A reunion.
relationships, both of every kind. But it's loving and it's generous. And there was a lady that I interviewed, a fan that I interviewed, who's an Egyptologist, talking about the very same thing of Xena providing a mythology and a gathering point and an example of how you should be yourself and be true to yourself. Well, that's far beyond what people who don't go to conventions think that's happening here. There are layers of things going on at these conventions that the outside world or the people who don't participate have no idea about, that only those of us who are here understand. And I think it's incredible.
Yes.
Okay.
Through the years,
Through the years,
with everything that's been done,
with everything that's been
you
done,
become a hero as an actor.
I become a hero as an actor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
With the roles you play. Who are your heroes?
Who are my heroes? Who are my heroes? Who are my heroes? Well, I'm doing a one-man show. I open on Broadway February 16th on a one-man show, and I'll be there for 2 weeks. And then I'll tour 15 cities. I don't know whether I come here or not. I can't remember. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. Of the 50s, I would think I'd be in New Orleans in one-man show sometime in March or April.
Okay.
And it's really challenging. I mean, I've done this for a long time, and this, talking to you, for example, and trying to keep your attention and amuse you and be informative and maybe draw some conclusions that might be stay with you, and is what I've done for a long time. So, and I remember the first time that I was asked to do a convention in those years, there'd be 15,000 people. 15,000 people. And go out and talk. Well, what do you say? And nobody had an answer to that because nobody knew. What do you talk about for an hour in front of 15,000 people? I mean, it's overwhelming. Imagine that. I mean, even actors are generally shy. And I think, you know, for years, I wanted to write, but I thought, what am I going to write about? And I don't have anything to say. There's a feeling of inadequacy. And what am I going to say to you that's going to make you stay in your chair? What? Anything.
Yeah. Just stand there.
Just stand there. Right. Hey. But I learned, and as a result of learning to speak to you, I've evolved a one-man show, and I'm going to open that show in New York, and it's a direct result of speaking to convention audiences over the years.
Awesome.
Now, I remember seeing Billy Crystal do his one-man show years ago, and my jaw dropped open. One guy on stage, he had some background stuff that was really good, and I don't have much of it. I have some clips. So it's just me telling stories about a horse, about my mother, about my dad, about Star Trek, of course, about life, about death, about how grief and humor are two sides of one coin. I mean, all that stuff I'm doing in the one-man show. But Billy Crystal was phenomenal in his one-man show. So, although not a hero, I will measure myself against him. In the show, I talk about Alexander the Great. I played Alexander and had to do all this Grecian stuff that also involved riding a tough horse, bareback, and how I evolved into that, and what happened, and how that riding that horse and doing that training inflamed my basic love of horses, so that horses became an enormous part of my life. But Alexander the Great was one of the great human beings in history. He was taught by Aristotle, and he, to his detriment, refused the saddle because he said it was too sissified for his men. But later on, years later, when he met the mounted riders of the Hindu Kush mountains, they were on saddle, and they had a steady platform in which to fire their arrows, and he lost, for the first time in his life, lost a battle because of the saddle, the irony of the saddle. But in there, in that story that I tell about Alexander, I'm dressed in very authentic wardrobe. I've got leather, hardened leather, a chest plate.
Ooh.
And, pushing me up.
Yes.
And I've got all the equipment, and the boots and the thing, and we're shooting over there, but the director has taken me aside. We're moved away from the movie company, and I had this 5-gated saddle-bred horse, black, Bucephalus, this great horse, and I had him on a lead rope. We walked over here from the movie company, and the director said, "You know, yesterday, the scene you played with the dying soldier, when you leaned over and spoke to him, the creak of the armor got in the way of the sound. So we have to reshoot it." And in that moment, I flashed on Alexander the Great, that 2,300 years ago, he had to have said to his second in command, "Xerxes, these night marches we're making, we've got to quiet the armor because it's creaking and giving our position away." I just knew I heard Alexander flash 2,300. Suddenly I was Alexander. Alexander was me in that moment. What a hero he must have been. So you ask me who my heroes are, I don't know. People, it's tough to find a hero these days.
George Takei.
I do a bit on George Takei in the show as well. He came to, Comedy Central did a roast of me. And in my defense of having accepted to do the roast, it was nominated for an Emmy Award. So they invited a lot of people, my best friends, to be on the dais, some of whom I knew. I'm trying that line out on you because I've invented that line for the one-man show. So you've heard it. It got a laugh, so that's good. And they invited George Takei, who hates me. I don't know why he hates me, but he hates me. It's been 50 years and he still hates me. I mean, the poor guy. He's like got this thing about me. I don't know. So I got an entry in this roast of mine. They put me on a horse. So I ride a horse into, like 1,000 people are standing around, and I ride a horse in and get off and go up on the dais. Okay? So I ride a horse into the roast. So the line that everybody knows is there. It's hanging in the air, the line. He rode in on a horse. It's just a matter of who are they going to give the line to. So they give it to George. Now George hates me. I don't know why, but he hates me. And he's also not funny. So they give him the line, and now I play the line. On the projection back there, George Takei says, "Fuck you and the horse I rode in on." It's not funny. And I roll the film back, and his face is contorted in hate. That's not a funny face. This is supposed to be funny. So yes, George Takei was at the roast. And as I say, it's hard to find a hero. But you know, there are heroes all around us. And it's just a matter of finding out who the heroes are. What's your name? Sergeant Lustig? Luster. Sergeant Luster is a hero.
Yes.
Sergeant Luster is a New Orleans policeman, and he's a good one. And he's our hero, believe me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay? So you find your heroes where you're Next question. Yes. You in the black.
Who would you say was the most formidable Star Trek villain?
Who was the most formidable Star Trek villain? How I would say it in my old age. He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, those pecs alone were heroic. Never mind his abs, but his pecs, my God. Women would kill for those pecs. He was wonderful, and a wonderful gentleman. Tell me his name again. Ricardo, as he would tell me time and time again, Ricardo Montalban. My name is Ricardo Montalban. And I would say, I'd like you to be Ricardo Montalban. And he would, the strange part of that is, when I was a kid, I went to New York. I don't remember how old I was, but I was very young, and went to a musical. And in the musical I saw, when I met him, he told me he was in that musical, and I remember him. I mean, like way back, years later. And he was a dancer. And then he got a hip injury, and I think it was from a horse. And he injured his hip, couldn't dance anymore, and gradually the hip deteriorated. So, can you imagine Ricardo Montalban, this athletic dancer, who's this great-looking guy, a Spanish lover on all those movies, a deteriorating hip, and he can't move, and he's in a wheelchair in his last years. What it must have been like. He was a gentleman to the end, and there's another hero. You in the green.
Yes, thank you. Will TJ Hooker ever make a comeback?
Will T.J. Hooker ever make a comeback?
Right after Barbary Coast.
Right after Barbary Coast. You mock me, sir. Probably not. There was a little bit of Hollywood here. A couple of people came into my office 3, 4, 5 years ago and said, we'd like to do a movie of T.J. Hooker, and you would play the Hooker's father, and you'd teach him all the stuff. Well, hey, you know, we're talking about aging. I mean, the things about T.J. Hooker, James Darren, I mean, when they said T.J. Hooker, my mind flashed to James Darren and his psychosis about birds. So we'd be running from one rooftop to another, jumping, you know, policemen running after the bad guy. Sometimes it was stunt guys, but a lot of the times it was us running and jumping. And James Darren had a psychotic fear of birds. And we were on the rooftops of Los Angeles. So there were birds on the rooftops. And he'd be in his cop uniform. I'm gonna take, oh my God, there's a bird! So they said, we want to make a movie and we'll float it. We'll float the idea in one of the industry magazines, The Reporter or Variety or so. So there was an item a few years ago about making, they did this is a Hollywood ploy to see if there's any interest. It's like throwing out a line, see if anybody bites. Well, nobody bit on the idea of making a movie about T.J. Hooker, so that was the last of the T.J. Hooker comebacks.
Out of curiosity,
Out of curiosity,
of all the crew of the original Star Trek Enterprise,
all the crew of the original Star Trek Enterprise,
who made the best food and who made the best drinks?
who made the best food,
And who made the best drinks?
who made the best food and best drinks?
Yes.
Who made the best food and drinks? That is the dumbest question. Jesus. Well, I'm sure that stuff was going on behind the scenes that I was totally unaware of. So there was eating and drinking going on that I wasn't a part of. You've all heard the gossip, but so I don't know. All I know is that there was one scene. Who wrote most of the good movies? No, not Roddenberry. Never wrote. Myers. Nick Myers. I like you. Nick Myers wrote an eating scene, and so we all sat around the table while this whatever it was they had was laid out. It was green and brown. And the Klingons. That was the eating scene. Yeah. What was it called?
Star Trek 6.
Star Trek 6. The Klingons. I didn't know that. So, it's in my book. Yeah, but I've forgotten. It's been so long. Hey, give me a break. I got to be up here and appear like I know what I'm talking about. So there was this eating scene. And Myers wanted us to eat. Now, think about this. You could do a scene all day long. A love scene. Darling, I love you. You do? You love me? Yes, I do. Here, have a piece of my steak. Ooh, your steak is good. Here, have a piece of my fish. Ooh, your fish is good. I love you. Okay, so now you're going to shoot it from every angle. So you start off in the morning, you're hungry. Hey, sweetheart, have a piece of my steak. Oh, that's good steak. By noon, you don't want to eat the steak. But you're shooting the scene and you have to match it, so you got to eat. You will eat the steak. People have gone out and whoopsed. They go up behind the scene to go vomit to get rid of the food so they can eat some more food in the scene. The last thing every experienced actor knows is you don't eat in a scene because you have to eat all day long. And what most people do is they get like a slice of apple. And you eat like, oh, wow, this steak is good. And put it in your mouth quick before the camera can see, because it's a piece of apple, because that slides down easily. There was this long green thing that had brown flecks.
Oh, God.
And there was like 20 people. And Nick Myers says, $20 a take to anybody who eats. Every time we do a take, I'll give whoever eats $20, because he knew that actors would go, oh, and another thing, and put the fork down for a moment. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, and never eat. Watch those in the eating scenes, by the way. So, see, my father came over on the boat from somewhere and had to bring his whole family over from Europe. He was 14, and he sold papers and he shined shoes. So when I was bored, he taught me the value of $1, especially $20. And besides which, there was a sense of competition between Nick Meyer and myself. Anyway, because he's small. He's the little guy thing. I'll get you no matter how short I am. So I began to eat the brown thing with the green. Every take. He ended up handing me well over $100. And I used 50 of it to buy medicine to quiet myself. And what was the question? I've answered something or other. Anyway, okay. Oh, eat and drink.
Yeah.
So it was a non-answer. Yes.
Speaking of spoken word shows,
Spoken word shows.
one of my personal heroes, I believe, is a friend of yours,
One of your personal heroes is a friend of mine.
Henry Rollins.
Henry Rollins. Love Henry Rollins.
And I find that it's kind of incongruous.
And you find that incongruous.
And
Well, so does Congress. Find it incongruous. To be a member of Congress is incongruous. Right.
wondering if you could kind of
Something there is not good. Okay. Hey, you can't win all the time, right? I mean, some are good, some are bad. I'm ad-libbing up here. You know? I don't have an editing possibility here. Tomorrow I'll say I shouldn't have said incongruous. Go ahead.
thought you might expect. I know he talks about you.
Henry Rollins and I are in Congress.
He talks about you in his
What? What? Spoken word,
He
yes.
talks about you in his spoken word.
He talks about me in his book.
In his spoken word.
In his spoken word. He talks about me? Is he kind? I'll kill him if he's not kind.
He says you make very good turkey.
I make very good turkey.
So anyway, I was hoping you might speak a little
Expound on the incongruity of Henry Rollins and myself. Well, I'll tell you about Henry Rollins. I'm doing an interview show. Raw Nerd, it's called.
Yeah, we like that show.
Thank you. Since there were three of you who cheered, and there were three of you who were watching it, so that's why it's not on the air anymore.
But we loved it.
I loved it. I loved doing that show.
It was great.
So I got all kinds of people. I did 39 of them all together. And I did Rush Limbaugh. And I got talking with Rush Limbaugh and found out all kinds of wonderful things about Rush Limbaugh. And in fact, brought tears to his eyes as he remembered some things in his past. Well, I thought, what a, he's a neat guy. He revealed himself emotionally. It was great. And I invited him to my house for Monday Night Football, which when I'm available, I invite a lot of friends, and maybe 20 guys show up, and sometimes special guests. Rush Limbaugh was a special guy, so he came up to Monday Night Football, and Henry Rollins comes up to Monday Night Football. You got it. So Rush comes a little late, and I'm introducing Rush to the people, and then there's Henry. Now there's a counter here, and behind sort of the end of the counter is a refrigerator where people can just go and get drinks. So Henry is there, and I move over with Rush Limbaugh, and I say, Rush, Henry Rollins, Rush Limbaugh. Henry takes one look at what he thinks is the devil, turns around, goes into the refrigerator, and puts his head in the refrigerator, never to come out again. Honest to God, he was looking for a drink for about 15 minutes. It was so funny. So, Henry Rollins. So Henry, we invite Henry, I'm doing a record called Has Been. Thank you. 7 of you clapped there. That was an improvement on Raw Nerd. So I've got an idea for a song that I write called I Can't Get Behind That, and all the stuff you can't get behind. And Henry comes in, we invite Henry, so he writes some of the lyrics, and we do it together as a spoken word thing. And then Ben Folds, this genius musician, more people for Ben Folds. How come the people who applauded for Ben Folds didn't buy Has Been? Because only 7 of you said, applauded on Has Been, but 25 of you applauded for Ben Folds, and then I can't see why the Ben Folds people wouldn't buy Has Been, so there'd be 25 of you. So Ben puts behind us screaming at each other all kinds of syncopation, drums and cowbells and tinkling. I mean, so the number becomes a whole, has elements, has a repertoire of beats, of syncopation and rhythms, and it's so complex and so interesting that you should hear it. And therefore you'd understand what I'm talking about. Okay, you're pointing your finger at who? The guy with the camera. Why should I choose him? Because he loves me. Okay. What's that? What? Oh, that's me? I haven't got my glasses. You're a nice looking lady. Because you love me, you're going to ask a loving question, I know. It's not going to be an attack, I know that.
You're my hero, I love you, and I want to know how you feel about Star Trek versus Star Wars.
How Star Trek against what? Star Wars. Star Wars against Star Trek. So I presume you know that on the YouTube? Is it YouTube?
Yeah.
Yes.
Internet. I never know the differences. On the YouTube, what's her name?
Carrie Fisher.
Fisher. What's her first name?
Carrie Fisher.
Carrie. Carrie. Carrie.
He knows.
Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher and I, one of my dear friends. She was invited to go on the dais, but she never made it. Carrie Fisher and I have been debating the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek. And that I thought that her push-up bra was unfair to bring viewers into Star Wars. Whereas we had girls with green paint and bikinis.
Short skirts.
And short skirts. So we've been having fun with that. And the result of which was, I said that Star Trek had the stories, the meaningful stories, and Star Wars was a ride. And that's basically how I feel anyway. You know.
Yes.
By the way, again, in the one-man show, which opens on Broadway February 16th. Let's see how long you guys can last.
All day?
Yeah.
All day.
All night?
Ooh. Son of a gun, that's talk about Xena convention having a patina of sex. Boy, that stuff is boiling here.
It's the oysters.
Yeah.
I almost went somewhere I wasn't going. Star Wars and Star Trek. So, I'm invited. American Film Institute invites me to do the opening welcome to George Lucas's getting a prize of some kind from the American Film Institute. A lifetime something.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what have you written? They said, well, you come on stage and you think it's a Star Trek convention. And then you realize it's Star Wars, and then
It was
I
great.
sing beautifully. Okay, so I go on stage and look around and look at a piece of paper and say, Star Wars convention? Look out, and the whole thing was, would George Lucas laugh? If George Lucas doesn't laugh,
We're in trouble.
we're in more trouble than trouble. The shine on my face right now is because it's warm here. But when it's cool and there's a shine on your face, that's called flop sweat. And if George Lucas doesn't laugh, the pores open up, you see, and out gushes a lot of perspiration, which dribbles down your nose, and you begin to go like this, because George Lucas isn't laughing. And he doesn't think it's funny that I'm up here peddling Star Trek while he and every known figure in Hollywood is out in front, because it's George Lucas and his friend, who?
Carrie Fisher.
Who?
Spielberg.
Why didn't you say that first? I have to be standing here waiting for and Spielberg. What's his first name?
Steven.
What? Steven.
Behind me.
Okay. I'm just pretending.
You knew that.
So Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and all their friends are up front, and I have to take my time about getting to Star Trek and Star Wars. I thought this was Star Trek, and I focus in on George Lucas, and George Lucas goes like this. And then I see, and I know I'm in, and it worked.
It was
really
great. It was great.
Okay, there is a hand, and that's green. It's a green thing. Yes, you and the green thing. You haven't got your hand up. You're in front of the green thing.
Can you explain the reasoning behind doing
The film.
All right. Have you finished asking the question? All right, pass the question down. What did he say? What?
How do you feel about Desperado?
How do I feel about
Desperado.
Esperanto?
Yeah.
How do I feel about Esperanto?
The movie you did in Esperanto.
Yes, no, I know what you mean. Well, that's what I know about it. So Leslie Stevens, who wrote all kinds of interesting things, what did Leslie Stevens write? What did Leslie Stevens write? Come on, this is a science fiction thing. What? Outer Limits. Okay? Leslie Stevens wrote Outer Limits. And he writes a script and he asks me to be in it. It's a basic script. Life and death, good and evil. I'm playing good, and some guy out of a devil comes out of the ground, and the good man, the bad man. Pretty good. Conrad Hall, who was a young cinematographer at that time, was going to be the cinematographer. He was already making his reputation. What did Conrad Hall film? Conrad Hall. Connie Hall. Who knows? I've got Connie Hall. Connie Hall, no Connie Hall. All right, he filmed a lot of big stuff that I can't remember. So he's the cinematographer. That alone would have made it good. So I start learning the script. One day, Leslie Stevens says, wait a minute, don't learn any more English words. We're going to do it in Esperanto. Esperanto, what the? Well, he says Esperanto is a language that is made up of German, Greek, and Latin words. And it is the international language, since everybody can't communicate. Japanese can't communicate with the English people, English-speaking people. We're going to have an international language, says George Bernard Shaw, one of them. George Bernard Shaw. Who knows George Bernard Shaw? Okay, three hands. Okay, good. English majors are here. So George Bernard Shaw was one of the people in the turn of the 20th century, I think, invented Esperanto. What a noble cause. Everybody learns Esperanto, and instead of speaking English and Japanese and having an interpreter, you all speak Esperanto. We're going to make it in Esperanto, says Leslie, because there are 17 million people who speak Esperanto, and they'll all come to the movie, and it will be a knockout success. Okay. So we filmed. I learned it phonetically. I see the English here, Esperanto there, and I'm saying these words as best I know how. And we make the movie. And there is indeed 17 million people who speak. There's 3 in New Orleans, and all 3 came to see it. And there was 2 in Los Angeles. So it failed. But it went to the Cannes Film Festival because it was in Esperanto. So I went to see it months later. Now, as you can tell, even then, my short-term memory was somewhat limited. I got a lot of things to think about. I can't remember these things. So I didn't know what the movie was about. And because it was going to Cannes, it was in Italian. I don't remember why, because Cannes is in French, but it was Italian. I read French, but I didn't read Italian. So I'm speaking Esperanto, the subtitles are in Italian, and I have no freaking idea what the movie's about. And that's what I think about Esperanto. I'm going to take one more question. You have a question? Gary has a question. Fuck it. I got the hook. He's sent for the hook. Were you going to say something to me? 35th wedding anniversary of the two of you. And did you meet as a result of Star Trek? Please say yes. Yes, you met as a result of Star Trek. And that's very romantic. Thank you for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. What a pleasure to see you.